I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is the TechCentral podcast brought to you today by IoT.nxt. I'm pleased now to welcome IoT.nxt CEO Nico Steyn back to the show and to welcome for the first time William Mzimba, who is CEO of Vodacom Business at Vodafone Group. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi, Duncan. Thank you very much for having us.
Pleasure. Now, if you missed the discussion a couple of weeks ago with Nico that we did right here on the TechCentral podcast, please do go and have a listen or watch that. We discussed Vodacom's acquisition of a majority stake in IoT.nxt and look at where the company is going next. But William, you represent the company that acquired this business. What attracted you to IoT.nxt?
Duncan, thanks for the opportunity. I think IoT.nxt is a very innovative South African-born company. When we came across it, it was completing a very critical part of the puzzle of our strategy around IoT. So as you would know, from a Vodacom point of view, we've been an IoT leader with more than 4.5 million devices connected. So at the connectivity layer, we had a very solid base there. And what we needed was to move up the stack and to be able to deal with issues of connecting different devices that are propagating different protocols. And we needed the capability to be able to do retrofits as well in terms of the install base that already exists, combining it with smart sensors and smart technologies. And when we came across the IoT.nxt technology at that time, it was already highly rated in the global market as something that's very innovative, that was solving a very critical component of IoT, which is what do you do at the edge around IoT. And that's really what attracted us, and it really closed a very critical part of the gaps that we had in our strategy and in our product portfolio.
Great. And what are some of the specific challenges that IoT.nxt is helping Vodacom address? And Nico, feel free to jump in as well on this question.
Yes, the specific ones that IoT.nxt is helping us with now is that they have got use cases that speak to specific industries. So we've pivoted our go-to-market model from a Vodacom business point of view that now looks at industry and segments in terms of large, small, and very large companies inside those industry segments. For example, when we look at banks, we look at the banks as a combined industry, but inside they will look at large banks, small banks, and their third-tier type banks. So that's our go-to-market model. And what we needed was the ability to have end-to-end solutions that address a specific need or a specific use case in each one of those industries. And at that time, Nico and his team and the IoT.nxt platform, they had already built a number of use cases that spoke to some of those industries that we required. For example, how do we manage the plethora of base stations that are out there and integrate IoT.nxt technologies to be able to bring about savings in energy, but at the same time, be able to make the management of base stations much more smarter and allowing that when you send an engineer, a field engineer out there, you already know probably what is wrong with the base station. So that was completing the end-to-end use case around telcos. But also, it was there was a need for us to focus on what we call smart buildings. And in there, we needed not only to address the connectivity dimension of buildings, but we wanted to make the buildings much more smarter and be able to collect a lot of data that can allow mall landlords, for example, to be able to attract more tenants on the basis that they are running the mall in a smart way from a security point of view, from a parking point of view, from a footfall point of view, and all the ancillary capabilities that are required in there. And the third dimension was the quick deployment capability that IoT.nxt had built, because we didn't want something that will be bespoke each time we go to a customer, but we wanted something that we can standardize and then build once and deploy multiple times. As you know, from a telco point of view, that's the nature of our business. We build a network and we connect many people onto the network. So it fitted very, very well with the local strategic perspective of Vodacom business, but also fitted very well with our long-term strategic initiatives that we're driving at the entire Vodafone Group.
It sounds like a lot of this technology is almost infinitely measurable in terms of its return on investment. The energy saving is a very quantifiable one. Can you maybe give us some insight, for example, on the base station deployment, what sort of money you were able to save?
Nico, you want to speak to that because you were intimately involved with that?
Yeah, so obviously from our perspective, what we see is a number of iterations. I think from the minute that we got into the project, I think it's been an amazing evolution in terms of where the industry is taking us and the technology. So we're seeing some early on savings already, and it's really ranging. It's really in a good sector, depending on how you look at it, but anything between 15 and 21% off the bat saving that we see right now. We see more improvements as we're moving into this with the advent or the introduction of AI and machine learning. So we're becoming a lot more intelligent in terms of how we're handling the infrastructure and how we're looking at how we manage the utilities and all of the devices within that environment. So very, very excited. And for me, literally, I think we're at the beginning. We're sort of scratching the tip of the iceberg at this point. I think, when we talk in a year from now again, Duncan, I'm going to be happy to report, larger, much more savings than that.
Good stuff, Nico. William, let me bring you back in then. We know that the telco industry is changing quite significantly, and I think Vodacom has communicated that quite clearly, certainly during its financial releases over the last 18 months or so. But certainly the telco business is transforming from one where it was traditionally a supplier of voice and data solutions into something much more different, something more of akin perhaps to an IT company providing digital services to end users, to companies. How do you see, where do you see, William, Vodacom as a group in 5 years from now? If you become much more of a provider of digital solutions, what does that mean and what does it entail for the company as it transforms?
Duncan, our mission at the moment, starting from what we're doing at the Vodafone Group level, is moving from being a telco company to a tech comms company. Basically, is a combination of a technology company and a communications company put together. And at the center of what we are driving is basically enablement by digital technologies. And we are right now structuring every part of our business to be digital first in terms of our customer interaction, customer touch points. We are enabling our networks to be much more intelligently based networks. If you look at what we are deploying from a Vodacom business point of view, we are also moving our clients into software-defined network. So we're building an intelligent layer at the network, at the core of our network, so we can simplify the provisioning of the network, but also that the network can begin to understand what is flowing through it, so it can help us be able to make the right adjustments and the right management, but also the right solutions for our clients, depending on the kind of applications that they want to push through the network. Yep. And what we're doing is we're also speaking about what we have now launched in the last year, which is the Vodafone Spirit. And the Vodafone Spirit basically talks about the need for us to be more innovative, to be more co-creative with our clients, and at the center of everything that we bring, to be able to do it together with our partners, with our clients, and with our people. And the intent of that is basically take the good things that you see coming from the over-the-top players and the technology companies, and then impose that or infuse it into what a telco has been doing over the years, which is good at the core of building networks. And now all of a sudden, you emerge as what we call a tech comms company. So that's where we are going. And tech comms company, one of the critical aspects at the center of tech comms companies, it's about building platforms. So as you hear us speak about IoT, we already have what we call a GDSP platform. which basically speaks to a global data services platform that allow us to manage SIM cards, for example, which can be deployed in a car manufactured in Germany, but distributed all around the world so that the telemetry in the car can connect to any network irrespective of where it is in the world. So we built that platform, which is a platform that is compatible with all the networks around the world to allow the mobility of cars manufactured from one place to the other. Then now we are overlaying IoT.nxt in terms of end-to-end solutions at the same time with our gateway capability coming out of IoT.nxt, and we are adopting that as our global standard for how to connect disparate systems on the IoT landscape and manage different sensors, both smart and non-smart sensors, on this technology that Nico and his team have created for us here in South Africa. So you can see where we are moving. We are moving into more than just a networks-based company. That is going to remain core to what we do. However, we are adding very important adjacencies that basically allows the growth of ourselves as a telecommunications company that operates in this digital world.
We all know, William, that change, especially for large companies, can be very difficult. Some large companies have done it quite successfully. Microsoft is an example that comes to mind, which has reinvented, a company that's reinvented itself at least 3 times in the 40 or 45 years that it's been in existence. But reinventing yourself when you're a large company is not easy. It requires a cultural shift. It requires a change in thinking. Was that back of your mind when Vodacom acquired IoT.nxt, bringing in new skills into the business, perhaps bringing a slightly different way of thinking about things into the business? And if so, is this going to be part of perhaps a series of acquisitions, bolt-on acquisitions that you're looking at to maybe infuse some new culture into Vodacom and drive some of that change?
Absolutely, Duncan. So our strategy is on 3 pillars. It's about build, what we've been good at over the many years. We have built successful networks. We've deployed them out there. We are the largest telco in the continent, as you can imagine. The second dimension of our strategy is about partnerships. You have seen the partnerships that we have announced, for example, the deep partnership with AWS. You see this morning we've announced a partnership around digital education platforms with Microsoft, and we've got many other big global partnerships that we're working on. The last results announcement, we've announced a deep partnership with the consulting companies, Accenture as our lead consulting partner there as well. And the third dimension of our strategy is about buy. So we are going to buy strategic assets that fit into the roadmap of growth that we have, that fits into the broader landscape of the tech comms company that I've spoken about, and that enables Vodacom Business to be a full end-to-end digital transformation partner of our customers out there. So those are the 3 pillars that we are going to continue to leverage or to pull on to get our strength to continue and sustain the momentum for growth. And IoT.nxt does something for us that is really quite unique. They bring a blend of skill that we, from a telco point of view, have never possessed before. They know how to build technology on a basis that it can form a platform. They know how to hire the right kind of skills and be able to keep the skill sets that they have and grow it. And they are now allowing us the opportunity through our ventures and partners, part of our business, to grow all the other partnerships and ventures that we had acquired before. You know, we have Mezzanine that builds platforms as well. We in the past acquired Nextio, used to be StoreTech, now it's Nextio. And we also have a geographic information systems company that operates in the big data space. So now all of these acquisitions that we've made are now put in what we call ventures and partners capability, which basically helps to accelerate the transformation of Vodacom Business into a more digital enterprise-enabled service provider.
Nico, let me bring you back in. How do you see IoT.nxt supporting Vodacom's digital transformation journey?
Thanks, Duncan. Yeah, so I mean, it's a very, very exciting time. I think in terms of, you talked about reinvention. I think it's an evolution. I think the telco, you're going to see the telco evolve beyond just connectivity. And I think, you know, really where William and Shamil are spearheading this thing really excites us as IoT.nxt. One of the discussions that we have and that we speak about is being able to make the pipe intelligent. And really, I think that's a key driver, is in terms of, yes, we have the transmission medium. We have a medium that actually moves the data. We have the ability to actually move that data, abstract that data very, very efficiently from the edge. And I think that is one of the key differentiators of what IoT.nxt is doing. But being able to sit and position that inside of a network like Vodacom and Vodafone's is game changing. Because what it does, it brings intelligence into that network. We now start to see data, and not only see the data move, we actually start to understand that data. And the value of that is I think that's where the game changes moving forward. I think that's where you see this evolution or reinvention, as you put it, start to take place. So I think it's I mean, we are super, super excited from IoT.nxt perspective in terms of what Vodacom is bringing. I mean, you couldn't have a more powerful partner. It sits, you know, connectivity sits at the heart of this technology and of this Industry 4.0. At the heart of it is connectivity. Now, how you harness that connectivity and how you shape that in terms of bringing value to your customer, that's the exciting part. And I think that's really where we can step into the gap and we can unlock real value synergistically between ourselves and Vodacom.
Interesting stuff. William, COVID-19, lockdowns, etc. We've been in lockdown, various phases of the lockdown since late March now. Work from home measures are still in place. I see we're all working from home. I'm not really in the Namib Desert, by the way, if you're wondering about my picture behind me. But William, how has COVID-19 affected conversations around digital transformation, and what role do you see Vodacom and IoT.nxt playing in that regard?
So COVID-19 is a national disaster, or let's call it a global disaster. There are many things that have changed since the advent of COVID. And I said this morning, many people talk about it as a black swan, something unexpected, but with massive impact in terms of changing how things have been before. And I've always been a proponent of what you do with all these discontinuities. And COVID-19 has brought another discontinuity in our lives. And I see that if we did not embrace the way the next normal, not even the new normal, we call it the next normal, we will miss a great opportunity as a continent to embrace the advent of digital technologies and the role that they play in repositioning our economies in the global scale. So there's 4 key things that I see are going to happen. One is supply chain lines are going to be redrawn. And there's going to be a nationalistic interest popping in, because we've now seen that the supply chains have been disrupted significantly, and we depended a lot on imports, and those imports were disrupted significantly when commercial airlines were closed and we wouldn't be able to move people and goods from one place to the other. The second dimension that is going to be massively different is that the small medium enterprise landscape is going to change significantly, with a lot of the small medium companies that were on the marginal side of survival are going to die. But because the companies are driven by entrepreneurs, there are going to be many more that emerge, but they will emerge in the new normal or in the next normal. And that next normal is going to be embracing digital technologies to do business. The third dimension we see is that governments are going to be very, very involved in the recovery of the economies, and therefore they are going to want to drive economic stimulation, and government will not be able to do that unless they themselves are changing the way they've been delivering services. And at the heart of that, you're going to need technology to enable and unblock the service delivery backlogs that we are sitting to be able to move at speed. Now, when you collect all of these facts, and there are other factors, I wouldn't want to mention all of them, it would take all the time we have today. But just those three that I have mentioned, a new normal begins to emerge. And I believe that what we have seen is the acceleration of the fourth industrial revolution by 5 to 6 years, bringing it forward than what we had anticipated was going to take from an adoption point of view. You look at the ways of working, we have now gotten accustomed to new ways of working. Many companies that I speak with our clients today are telling us that they will not be returning back to office or to the way of work until 2022. I have read recently a Fortune interview of the Fortune 500 CEOs that were sampled out of there, and many are talking about the pre-COVID days are no more. 50 to 60 to 70% of them are talking about travel will no longer be the same as they used to have it before, and work spaces, workplaces, and ways of work are completely going to change. So I see this as a great opportunity for us as a continent, and specifically as South Africans, to embrace what technology is bringing and begin to do things much more differently. As the supply chains are disrupted and lines are redrawn, this is a great opportunity for us to bring more industrialization that's enabled by technology to make us more competitive. This is a great opportunity for us to put investment behind more innovative startups that are in the technology space to be able to bring about acceleration in the growth of the economy and the creation of new jobs. This is a new way of us to deliver health, to deliver education, to deliver many, many other services that in the past were required to be delivered in a much more costly way. So although the pandemic is a very regrettable disaster that we are facing right now, I say the silver lining that we need to look up to for ourselves is how it can begin to accelerate the true transformation of our economy to be where it needs to go.
But it sounds to me, William, like the potential is there for very much a net positive coming out of this for the ICT sector.
Indeed, indeed. And in fact, we've seen it already. Our traffic has increased 40, 50, 60% since the start of the COVID period. Mm-hmm. And we have seen now a new way in which many people have begun to work. So now they require connectivity anywhere, anytime, and they want to stay always on. And the demand for businesses to be online has skyrocketed. The demand for people to click and get it delivered, not to touch and feel, mm-hmm. has now completely changed, which means we now have to embrace what has been always termed phygital. So there will be the physical brick and mortars, warehouses where things will go, but then there will be physical way in which people will buy these goods and services. And then we need to streamline our logistics and supply chain processes. There is an opportunity to create more companies, more jobs, and get people picking goods from one place and delivering it to another. So I'm more encouraged if we can collectively think about this as an opportunity more than it is about, just a pandemic.
William Mzimba is CEO of Vodacom Business at Vodafone Group. William, you have to dash off to another meeting, no doubt another Zoom or Microsoft Teams window. But thanks for joining us on the podcast today. We're going to continue the conversation with Nico, Steyn, CEO of IoT.nxt, so don't go anywhere. Well, we're joined now by Strauss, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at IoT.nxt. Andre, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a bit about yourself. How did you get into the IoT business?
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So, as a technology guy and a bit of a tech nerd, I've been in this industry or the IT industry for most of my career. We actually worked together a bunch of the IT IoT.nxt guys in the late 90s, and our different paths took us in different directions. But I've always been involved in some sort of a technology venture, ranging from marketing automation, email marketing, software development, and the like. But obviously, as a do-it-yourself type of guy and a very practical tinkerer, IoT was always interesting. So when we joined up again, and when I joined Nico again with IoT.nxt, it was just a natural fit. I think it worked well for my personality and my skills, and always loved to understand how things work. And IoT is super interesting in the sense that it brings normal technology and software together with how things work, because that's ultimately what IoT does. So very interesting route to get here.
Good stuff. Well, how are the conversations changing around IoT since the madness that happened this year, talking COVID, of course? How are your conversations with businesses changing around IoT, and what are they telling you?
Yeah, so I think change started to happen before COVID and before this strange 2020 thing already, in the sense that I think initially there was a lot of hype around IoT, and people almost, and businesses almost saw it as something separate, something new, innovative, where what IoT actually is to connect your existing things and to make everything that you do smarter. So there was already a trend over the past year of businesses wanting to do more of this and actually doing more of this. I think what COVID did is it made it more deliberate. I think that people suddenly realized that if you can't get to your pumps in your factory, or get to all your equipment or your different facilities, digitization and digital transformation is way more important than ever before. So I think it basically accelerated the need and the practical benefit for most companies. So where we used to be a very theoretical conversation a couple of years ago to last year when companies started to implement these kind of things, it now got accelerated. So it's now top of mind. We now suddenly, everything is forced to be digital. And then I think a lot of enterprises realize, but they're lagging behind in terms of their control systems and being able to monitor and manage their different operations remotely. So it certainly accelerated the whole process.
So do you think that companies are, do you think the conversation in companies has gone from the tech department into more of a business discussion now?
Well, it has to be. And I think that was one of our struggles initially with IoT, is that it was very much just a IT conversation, when it's not. I mean, IoT is fundamentally the bridge that bridges operational technology and operations to the IT world. And I think that entire conversation has shifted over the past 2 years anyway, and now this year more so than ever. And it has to be led by business. It has to be led by the operations of the business, and even the sales organizations, in terms of new ways to go to market. Okay.
Well, we were chatting to William Mzimba from Vodacom a little bit earlier in this podcast, and he spoke about how Vodacom is utilizing IoT.nxt technology in its own network infrastructure, and he also spoke about how Vodafone is looking at deploying the technology in some of its operating companies around the world as well. Maybe Andre, just take us through how you see IoT.nxt expanding outside of its home of South Africa.
Well, Vodacom did give us a springboard to obviously prove some of the technology and adopt it a little bit earlier. And what I think has happened over the past year is not just in South Africa, but globally. I think people are more looking at IT solutions as practical, operational type of technology versus a fad or something in a hype cycle. So given the fact that I think most of our projects for Vodacom are massive in scale, and a lot of it has happened before we even had a partner in Vodacom. We started doing work in the network, and it's fundamentally changing the way that they remotely manage 15,000 sites. So it's a vast deployment. But I think what that has done for us is to obviously create some of the use cases with the credibility of a massive live deployment that's able to take us global. And this has been recognized by companies like Verizon and the likes internationally. From a Vodafone Group perspective, it's actually very enlightening to see how South African-born technology is accepted. I mean, in a lot of aspects, we are ahead of the curve. And this has been proven through lots of processes inside Vodafone where they say, but these guys down in South Africa, they've actually figured out how to extract real value out of these projects and how they're able to actually prove in real time that IT is a real thing that practically makes a difference. So we've had a lot of recognition globally, but Vodafone specifically has really adopted this, and a lot of the specific countries running Vodafone operations are standardizing on our technology as a result.
Okay, so what are some of the markets that you're operating in now?
Yeah, so I mean, we've had projects in many different countries, but I think some key markets where we're really expanding at the moment is obviously the UK, where one of the strongest Vodafone opcos are. I mean, they are in the enterprise space one of the strongest, if not the strongest opco. But then similarly, we've had very good engagement in Egypt, a lot of drive from Egypt, talking to Spain and Italy, a lot of the southern European countries, and then obviously through Vodacom Group, through a lot of Southern Africa and African countries like Ghana, Mozambique. Kenya's got an incredible operator called Safaricom. That's been one of our biggest successes. They're really quick to adopt this kind of technology and they go to market very aggressively. And then the likes of Tanzania. Then beyond Europe and Africa, we've had adoption in the strangest of places, like New Zealand, as an example, is very proactive in terms of IT deployments. They're looking at adopting the technology, and then obviously the Americas. So the growth is I think representative of our offering and our overall market presence. We've always believed that we have world-beating technology. This has now been proven through a lot of adoption globally by a lot of the Vodafone companies and outside of that as well.
Nico, you guys were already expanding internationally before Vodacom came along, right? You were already operating in a couple of markets abroad.
Yes. What I think Andre didn't really articulate that well, you know, and sometimes I just have to help him, you know. After 25 years, I still have to do this. No, just kidding. He's very good with it. He's obviously being very modest. I think what we see is a massive uptick in terms of the Vodafone engagement. Obviously, from our perspective, in fact, for me, one of the key factors in terms of considering the transaction was we needed a partner that could give us sweat equity. That sweat equity translates into global access to customers and global reach. And, you know, suffice to say that Vodafone have delivered on both of those. So right now, we are heavily involved in those opcos, understanding that Vodafone have, 600 million consumer customers. They have 4.5 million enterprise customers and 1,500 multinationals.
Massive.
So it is massive, you know. So from an IoT perspective, company perspective, I don't believe anything and anyone is better positioned than where we are right now. The level of interaction that we're having into the group is massive, and understanding that, you know, they hold relationships that are just unbelievable. So in the US, we're talking to customers at C-suite, which you could only dream of being able to do. And Vodacom and Vodafone do that seamlessly. They have 10 and 12 and 15-year relationships. They're represented in over more than 40 partner markets. That means environments where they're not physically having a network, they're also delivering services into those environments. So really, right now, that's what's, as you can see, Andre, youngster, doesn't look a day over 28. And that's
it's hard to tell on a Zoom call.
Anyway, if there is video, people should go and check out. He's really kept his age well and his hair. But the fact of the matter is, we're moving the dial on this thing, you know. And what is fantastic is to see, and I marvel at that, and I'm always humbled by the amount of people and the talent that we have in our organization, that we can get in front of these multinationals and really I mean, we had meetings last night at 10 o'clock again with the US, with some of the largest conglomerates in industry on that side, industrial companies. And we're deploying, you know, and I had my team actually sitting with their guys with devices and bringing it live online, showing the guy actually how to do it. And he was absolutely just blown away. You know, this is stuff that he's been trying to do for 8 months. And here we come and we do it in an hour and a half session. Not only do we get the device to connect through our wonderful Raptor technology, we get to visualize it, and he gets to set up his rules and all that type of stuff. So I marvel at what we've been able to develop. And obviously there's a lot of pressure on us as a team to continue on that cycle. I think, you know, there's massive demand now in terms of what we can or of our capability. What we now need to make sure as an organization that we metamorphosize, that we grow with it. And obviously part of that is acknowledging that we're starting to move from a multifunctional startup environment. We need to start building in some structure and process, which obviously is bringing some interesting discussions to the fore, especially for someone who's as unstructured as I can be at stages. But at least I recognize that in terms, and I'm old enough now. I didn't necessarily recognize that 25 years ago, but you know, I'm fortunate enough now that I have a bit of experience, and that allows me, you know, to help the business to move to the next level. So we're in a fantastically exciting period of time, and obviously Andre is at the forefront of that because he's sharp end of the stick and he's in front of the customers most of the time. Yeah.
Well, Andre, Nico has been picking on you a lot during this podcast today, so I think this is your opportunity now to tell us all a big dark secret about Nico that can be shared on YouTube and all the other platforms that this podcast is going out onto. No, I'm just joking.
That was not part of the script. And don't give him
No, I can tell you one thing, however, is it is never boring. Ever. And it was never boring, but now even more than ever, we're not bored. It's a super exciting space because he does change his mind often, and that's what makes him really good at it. But it is exciting.
I do actually have a serious question for you, Andre, though, before I let both of you go. How much complexity is involved in this IoT world, Andre, and what is IoT.nxt doing to help reduce that complexity?
That's an interesting one. So it's super complex, and I think the reason why we've been successful is we've been able to abstract that complexity. So I think, and I think maybe that's something that's part of the culture of our company, and we kicked off this business with a very big project, and the only way that we could deliver that was to remove the complexity. So it wasn't necessarily part of the script, but that became part of our ethos and our business. So if you typically take the rollout that we're doing for Vodacom as an example, you've got 15,000 towers. Some of them are 30 years old, some of them are brand new, different technologies from different places around the world. Some of them have been vandalized. I mean, it is really almost impossible to even understand what it is. Yet we go there with a single Raptor, we connect it, and installation takes anything between 90 minutes and 2 hours. The site lights up on the internet or on the system. We're able to visualize and so on. We've removed the complexity. So, and I think that's a key differentiator for us, is that this world is typically complex. That's why so many companies struggle to make sense of it. And I think that we've found a really amazing way of taking away that complexity. So from the client side, like Nico said, you have a client struggling for 6 or 8 months to connect something. Oh, guys, we're spoiled. Our systems are so well abstracted that we connect it quickly, and it's like, okay, great, is that what you were looking for? And the customer falls off his chair. We see that all the time. So I think your question in terms of complexity, it's super complex, and I think the way to get past that is to get past the complexities, make it simple, and get to the business value. And I think that's what we're really good at, and that's a key differentiator for us.
Right, guys, I think we'll leave it there. Andre Strauss is Chief Commercial Officer at IoT.nxt, and Nico Steyn is the company's CEO. And of course, we were joined earlier in this podcast by William Mzimba, CEO of Vodacom Business. Thanks so much for your time and sharing your insights with TechCentral today.